Well, as we prepared for our little getaway, of course, I had to check out which different hotel we may want to stay at. And I saw one hotel that advertised itself as Insta Fantastic. Now, that doesn't mean that you add water to it and it's fantastic, but it means Instagram. So I wanted to let you know that everything about this hotel was a picture-perfect event to take place. But it's just not hotels, is it, that are online lives. Pretend to be Christmas postcard perfect. But we know better, don't we? We know that really it's not a matter of a picture or two or 10 or 20 pictures that make a difference. It's making connections that are real and authentic. Connections that count. So Advent, or what many of us call December, often affords an unusual amount of opportunities for connection, whether it's holiday parties, planned or impromptu gatherings with family and friends. And yet maybe this Advent season finds you weary. For some, the last thing we want to do is to connect with people. Now, Isaiah, an Old Testament prophet, had many Instagrammable quotes. And perhaps one of his most famous ones is found in what we refer to as chapter 9, verse 2, where it says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light." It's very quotable this time of the year, especially this time of the year. And we like to quote it because of that second half. We've seen the great light. We like that part. But we tend to skip over, avoid, rush right past that first part, even though that first part perhaps deeply resonates with many of us. The people who walked in darkness. And that is what the season of Advent is about. Well, boy, do I understand, and perhaps you do too, the desire to move past that darkness part and get to the great light. Who wants to hold on to the weariness of wars or economic injustice or more news about the Epstein files or masked agents dragging a pregnant woman down the street or another draconian transgender bill being voted on? Who doesn't want to rush past that and get to the happy clappy part? I would. And I suspect you might as well. So of what benefit could there be for the church calendar to offer up to us this possible wisdom of lingering in what I didn't know what to describe, but maybe this harsh stew? So what I want to remind us of is that 2,000 years ago, people were even more wearier than we are. And it was at that exact moment then that God came in the form of a baby and gave words of hope, love, joy, and peace. God spoke to a weary people and said, "Your weariness is welcome here." So I've been pondering, how do these two seemingly divergent streams converge? Because divergent streams are not meant to converge, are they? Well, they can't, right? But I feel they do. These streams of walking in darkness and seeing a great light. And as I thought about it, the two streams come together best as I looked at the two of the key figures in the baby Jesus story, Elizabeth and Mary, both weary in their own situations. They found themselves in situations beyond anything that they ever could have imagined. So many of us have heard that it was 1943, this guy named Maslow comes up with this thing called the hierarchy of needs. You've seen it, perhaps. It's a triangle with a base at the bottom. And at the very bottom, he said, we have these physiological needs. That's the very foundation of what we need. We need food, water, warmth, clothing on your body. And then you move up to you need safety. And then beyond that, there's this sense of belongingness and love, and he works his way up. But what we've discovered since 1943, it's the result of hundreds and hundreds of research studies, is that he got most of it right, but he missed one important part. because he missed that part that babies can be fed and have a safe place to live and have clothing on their backs and have their diapers changed appropriately. But if they don't have a human connection, they will not thrive. They will not flourish. And so, yes, the base need is physiological, but it's paired with this emotional and mental and physiological and spiritual, and all of those together, coming together is what makes us whole. So if we think of this as a 3-act scene, we have Elizabeth who conceives at a really, really, really old age. Just think unimaginably old. And then we're told that she goes basically into hiding. I don't know, maybe she thought she needed bed rest to play it safe, or maybe she was afraid that the chatter would start. You know, she's well beyond the age. And she didn't need the stress of that. And so she goes into 5 months of seclusion. You may know that her husband's voice was taken away, so she had no baby showers, no gender reveal, no balloon pops. Elizabeth didn't have HDTV to pass time. She didn't have Facebook to scroll through and see if anybody else going through this. I mean, this is really weird. I'm like really old to be having a baby. So Elizabeth was all alone. Act 2. An angel visits Mary and says to her, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you. Don't be afraid, Mary, for you found favor with God, and you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you'll name him Jesus." And now Mary's mom had the bird and the bees talk with her, and she said to the angel, "I don't think so. You see, Joseph and I, And but the angel says, "I know all about the birds and the bees too, but this isn't just any baby. This baby is to be born of you is God, the Son of God." And right now, your Elizabeth, this cousin of yours, she's conceived a son in her old age. And so we've got Mary, a young girl, 13 maybe, 16, somewhere in that area, being told that she's going to be pregnant through the power of the Holy Spirit. And oh yeah, this baby's going to be God. Angel or no angel, Mary's response is legit. She is a whirlwind of anxiety. She's troubled to the depth of her being. She didn't feel favored. Why would she? She came from what we would call the wrong side of the tracks, the south side. She wasn't in any famous line of matriarchs or priests or kings. She didn't have a formal education. So Mary's perplexed, weary, insecure, anxious. Sermon title, "How Do the Weary Rejoice?" Mary was so alone that even the one she was betrothed to, Joseph, was ready to give up on her. So the third act in our drama, we read Mary set out to hook up with her cousin Elizabeth. Who knows, maybe 25 miles away. Now, that's not too far if you've got a ride share. Kind of a long way on a donkey, a really long way if you're on foot. And we don't know how she got there. But we know that when she gets there, she knocks on the door, and Mary enters the house, and the baby Elizabeth is carrying within her says that the baby leapt for joy. Elizabeth is overcome in emotion and announces, and pronounces, a better way of saying it, pronounces this huge blessing on Mary. "Why has this happened to me, that the mother of my Lord comes to me? For as soon as I heard the sound of your greeting, the child within my womb leaped for joy. Thanks be to God." Now, if we just read that by itself, it'd be special, but we would miss so much. We might just think it's the story of two cousins visiting one another. But by knowing what brought them together, by knowing what brought each of them to where they were, we understand that it's a story about connections and about lives that were missing connections. It's the story of one who literally hid herself away for 5 months, and another one who was so overwhelmed with anxiety and her own unworthiness that now she's suddenly favored and carries the Son of God in her womb. These women were desperate to experience connection. They were desperate to experience peace, love, joy, and hope. Can you imagine how Elizabeth felt when her cousin shows up and they find connection, they find community? So as we circle ever closer to Christmas, I'm asking you to consider, who can you be for someone? You see, the story of Mary and Elizabeth is an invitation for all of us to connect with people. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as getting pregnant in your advancing years. That's good news for many of you, yes. Or because like Mary, well, that ain't happening, I'm sure. And one thing that many of us have heard, that as we become more connected via electronics, we are in fact becoming less connected. So, as I said, Betsy and I I didn't say this part of it, but we had a use it or lose it coupon for a couple of quick days trip into the city. And it too became an opportunity for connection, not only with each other, which was splendid. Took the train down, got into a cab. Opened up a conversation with him. Hispanic. He's afraid. ICE has just been announced back, and he shared his fear. Why? Because we made that connection. We asked questions. How do you feel? And we made what I feel is a meaningful connection in our 10 or 12-minute cab ride. Another cab ride we took, found out he liked real football, not the kind that we think of football, but a real football. He was from Syria. Still has family in Syria. So we talked about Syria in the cab. Let him know that we cared. He still has family there, as I said, and he still longs to be with his family, but there's no job opportunities, and so he's here providing for his family. As I said, these weren't long cab rides, 8 to 10 minutes to get anywhere in the downtown, but we made honest connections with people who are, for the most part, taken for granted. But perhaps the most meaningful one to me took place after hours. See, our hotel was connected to a 5-story mall that was completely locked down, but our hotel was connected, and you could go through a couple of doors and get in an elevator. And Betsy and I had eaten way too much for dinner, and so we thought, well, we'll just walk in this mall around. And so we got onto the elevator and joined a woman who clearly was the night shift for cleaning. And Betsy looked right at her and said, I really appreciate what you do. It's really hard work. Her response was to say, thank you. I have 3 children. She named them, gave us their ages, and said, I do it for them, she said, because it's the best I can do to provide for them. And in that not so brief conversation, she thanked us for caring for her. Meaningful connections can happen anywhere. In a line at the grocery store, in an elevator, a phone call to someone you've been thinking about lately, or around the table following a church service. All we have to do is take the opportunity to engage and to care for the people who cross our paths. Amen.